Hello, welcome to another video. This is a follow-up video from my first video where I gave some information on how people can find and identify liberty cap mushrooms in the wild. Now many questions came in the comments section of that video, asking things like how to prepare, how to dose, how many to take, and this kind of thing. And so I felt like there's a good demand for information out there on this kind of subject. So I'm going to go ahead and make a few videos on those kind of questions. But before I get to these questions of how many to eat and how to prepare them, I really want to cover some fundamentals that I think are way more important. So the things I'm going to talk about in this video are actually the set and the setting of a psychedelic experience. I'm going to cover the basics on why somebody might want to have a psychedelic experience, and most importantly how one can prepare for a psychedelic experience. So the first thing I'm going to talk about in this video is the set. And when I say set, what I'm referring to here is essentially the internal state of being that a person has at any given time. Now the things that make up a person's set are really quite complex and intricate, and so it's really hard to cover all aspects of it in a simple video here. But there are many ways that a person can kind of cultivate a positive set in preparation for a psychedelic experience. So a simple way to put this would be that you wouldn't want to take a psychedelic substance on a day where you've been very stressful, where you've got a load of responsibilities coming up, and you've just overcome some kind of massive trauma in your life. This would kind of result in a set that wouldn't be particularly useful for a psychedelic experience. Whereas on the other hand, you may have just received a promotion at work and now you've got some time off, you've got no responsibilities, life's very good, you're healthy, and this kind of circumstance would bring about a really positive set and would favour quite well with the psychedelic experience. So a few things that you can do to cultivate a positive set leading up to a psychedelic experience. The first thing is to really consider an intention. And so this is asking the question, why am I taking this substance? What do I want to get from it? What's the kind of framing for taking this substance? And for those that aren't aware watching this video, I'm sure many of you are already, but the psychedelic experience can be quite profound. In fact, it's often described as the most profound and impactful experience a person can have. And in my experience, that is definitely the case. So, you've got to really be cautious and considerate when taking steps towards having what might be the most profound experience of your entire life. So first thing, intention. Think about why you're doing this, what you want to get from it, and be really clear in that. And in some cases it might just be as simple as I'm curious and I want to explore myself, or it might be I want to have an experience that's so vastly different from anything I've experienced before so that I can have a more open mind. It's just important that you're clear in that. So the third thing that I would recommend people familiarise themselves with before preparing for a psychedelic experience is a very simple, or at least a basic understanding of a meditation practice. Now, meditation is essentially the art of letting go. It's the art of focusing your attention so that you can let go of unnecessary thinking and sensation. And in my experience, this is a really useful tool to have, not only for everyday life, but for a psychedelic experience. One way I like to think of this is like, imagine yourself going to a handyman job with a tool full of belts, with a belt full of tools, and you're going into the experience prepared with a few things that might help you out. Well, I consider meditation to be one of those things in the belt. Now, it'd be much use, you'd much rather go into the experience with these tools than without. So I'm not going to cover, meditation in detail here. I recommend that you go away and look into how to meditate, how it can benefit you, and there's a whole load of scientific studies out there that can kind of back that information up. I'll recommend a few things now. You know, there's apps out there like Headspace that give you just a really quick and easy understanding of meditation. So go check those things out. Now, another really important thing that I mentioned briefly earlier was to have a clear schedule. You know, when you've got things that are coming up in the future that are planned, these can have quite a massive impact on your state of mind in the present moment. So you want to take the time to clear your schedule, take some time off work so that you've got a chance to prepare, have and integrate a psychedelic experience. Now, you know, ideally you would take a week off work, have 2 days preparation, have an experience, and then have a few days in the weekend to just settle back into everyday life. It really wouldn't be beneficial for you to try and cram a weekend, you know, try and cram a psychedelic experience into a weekend or into a day and have to go to work or have, you know, really urgent family meetings the following day. And this also goes to speak for the immediate time in and around the experience as well. So you don't want to have plans to meet up with a friend later in the evening after the experience. You know, make those plans as they come if you feel like it's necessary. Don't plan them ahead of time, because the pressure of that can influence you in the present moment. Similarly, don't have a really busy and urgent work meeting just before an experience. Just make sure you've got some time in and around to settle in and prepare. Doesn't apply to everyone, but it's really, really important to consider the possibility of complications such as mental health issues and mental health medication. So most importantly, it's really worth looking into your family and just checking that there's no history of mental illnesses such as schizophrenia or psychosis. If you have family history of mental health issues, it's really not worth you taking the risk, because it can trigger these illnesses. Similarly, if you're currently on SSRIs or similar health medications, mental health medications, it's really not worth you taking psychedelics in conjunction with these medicines. So in the second part of this video, I want to talk a little bit about setting. Now, whereas set is referring to the internal world, setting is referring to the external world. So this is your immediate environment when taking a psychedelic, and the way that you can kind of prepare that for the experience. So the first and obvious things to consider when preparing your environment for a psychedelic trip are things like make sure it's comfortable and safe. So a lot of people watching this video might have the idea of taking psychedelics out in public, maybe at a festival or out in the park or something like this. In my experience, if it's your first time or you're still very inexperienced with psychedelics, this isn't really a good idea. I'm going to talk a lot more about this in detail in other videos, but for now I'm going to say that when you're on psychedelics, the mind is so sensitive, and so if you're out in public and there's many people around that you don't know, it can lead to quite an uncomfortable experience, let's say. So to get the most out of it, in my experience, it's best to be somewhere safe, indoors, somewhere familiar. Ideally, it's like your own apartment or your own flat, where you know where everything is and you're comfortable. So that way that you can remain undisturbed for the duration of the psychedelic experience. The people talking about taking psychedelics in the bedroom at night while their parents are in bed, not a good idea. In my experience, the The times when I've had bad experiences on psychedelics is when I've been unprepared for people showing up or turning up, or suddenly someone knocks on the door and demands my attention. This is when you often get thrusted into a really anxious state of being, and when you're on psychedelics, this state is enhanced by 1,000. So you really want to just be somewhere quiet, somewhere safe, somewhere familiar, and somewhere comfortable. Now, alongside all this, ideally, if you're inexperienced, or even if you're experienced, it's such a great idea to have a trip sitter. And this is somebody that can be there with you whilst you're tripping, to do anything you might need. And that might be just, get you a glass of water or a cup of tea. Or it might be something like help you to the toilet, because however silly it sounds, when you're in the psychedelic state, the idea of going to the toilet can be quite a daunting one, for many reasons. So it's a really good idea to have someone around that you're familiar with, that you're comfortable with. Another thing that's really important with setting when it comes to a psychedelic experience is the preparation of a music playlist. Now, in most cases, in recreational use and in clinical therapeutic settings, the main guide of a psychedelic experience is music. And the music itself becomes kind of the essence of the trip and can influence it in many, many different ways. So this is another really complex subject that needs more discussion. But essentially what you want to have is some not too hardcore, kind of gentle, ambient kind of music set up in a playlist that's going to last for the duration of the experience. Because the last thing you want to be doing when you're under the influence is trying to figure out what song's on next, or that kind of thing. So you want to have this set up beforehand so you can just press play and relax into the experience. Many people have this idea of you're going to do all these things while you're tripping. You're going to play games, you're going to browse YouTube. And fair enough, if you're experienced, you might have the abilities to do that. But for me, that's distracting yourself and it's going external. The most valuable experiences happen internally. So you want to be able to relax, lay back, close your eyes in a comfortable space and allow yourself to go on this internal journey. That's where the value is, in my experience. So yeah, the idea of having all these things set up beforehand is great. So the next thing is having an option of being outdoors. So if you're in an apartment or if you're in your own flat and you have a nice garden area outside, it's really handy to be able to go out there if you want to. Because mystical and magical experiences often happen on psychedelics when you're outside in nature. And I mean, however amazing it would be to be out somewhere like this in the woods, I've not actually yet conjured up the courage to do so, because out here, you could easily get lost and people can just turn up at any point. The weather can change suddenly, so it's not a good idea to be out somewhere like this. But if you have a trip sitter and you're nearby somewhere like this, it can be a really nice idea towards the end of the trip to say, let's go for a walk outside. So having that as an option is also really, really great. So there are a few things to consider, and I've barely even scratched the surface on what it means to prepare for a psychedelic trip. If there's anything in here that anyone feels like they'd like to know more about, please let me know in the comments so I can make a more detailed video. I do intend to kind of dig deeper into all these things down the line, but I just wanted to put this out so that people have like a quick and brief understanding of this kind of things that you need to consider when preparing. So make sure to go out and do your own research on set and setting and how to prepare for a psychedelic trip. It's always worth it, because at the end of the day, it's your life and your mental health that's at risk. So with that being said, if all these things are in place, even loosely, psychedelics can be the most amazing experience available to you. So be safe, be responsible, and take care whatever you decide to do. I'm going to put out another video soon on dosage and preparation and how to, prepare Liberty caps for consumption and how to decide how much to take. That'll be coming in maybe a week's time. So keep an eye out for that. If there's anything else you want to see in the meantime or know more about, whether it's more information on how to find Liberty Caps, just give me a message in the comments and I'll get to it if I can. Okay, peace.